Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Pictures at an Exhibition, not by ELP, but by Voyager IV.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So I don't know if I should say Voyager IV or just Voyager 4, I literally have no idea, so I'm just gonna call them Voyager IV. By the way, I am still sick, which is really a bummer, but hopefully we can get through this video in one whole piece. But without that being said, here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So as I said, this is the rendition of Pictures at an Exhibition by Voyager IV. Now I can only assume that a lot of people watching this video are already familiar with the original piece by the same name by Petrovich Masagrovsky, I think that's his name. Honestly, it can be up here on the screen because I don't remember. But most people on here, I would assume, know better the version made by ELP, which I personally love to bits. But unlike the original piece by ELP, Voyager IV actually made this one as a tribute to ELP themselves, and more specifically to the late Keith Emerson. Now, of course, a tribute to him and a tribute to what he did on this album is highly appreciated, but because they've accumulated enough subject material and they composed a lot of pieces for this tribute show, they decided to take it with a few more grains of, different things and combine them all into one studio album. So how does this album stand up to its predecessor? Well, the short answer would be no, it doesn't. And the long answer would be no, it fucking doesn't. So firstly, this album suffers from a huge identity crisis. It doesn't know who it is, what it's doing, and what's its purpose. So instead of just covering the entire ELP piece from start to finish, the band opted to put in between some of their own songs, which some of them are covers for classic songs in the prog scene, being, for example, Lucky Man and I Talk to the Wind. And honestly, I see the way that they performed this piece as a far cry from the original, both the original piece by Petrovich and the original piece by ELP. It just doesn't sound anyway the same, and when it does sound good, it's basically when they do the same performance as ELP as a one-to-one performance. And honestly, I've seen a lot of people on forums saying that this band is very talented, that they've created something very magnificent, and oh my god, what is this lovely piece? And I don't know what about you, but I don't like it at all. The only good thing that I can say about this album is the bass playing by Fritz Roppel. I think that he does a fantastic job. I think he uses a fretless bass, and if not, he definitely makes it sound like a fretless bass, and he has real talent, which is shown on here. But when it comes to the rest of the ensemble, I was not excited about this album at all. So I did not like the vocals at all. It was basically suffering to go through listening to these vocals. I hated the way that he sounds. It just sounds so dissonant, so unattractive in some way, but not in a good way, if you know what I mean. And also the keyboards themselves, although they had a lot of potential on this album, he always seems to play these really, obscure jazz chords which have nothing to do with the melody itself, and it doesn't sound good in any way. If anything, it just sounds pretentious as ever. And the band themselves thought it was a good idea that yes, they can make this album without the electric guitar, or any guitar for that matter, and oh boy, did they make a huge mistake. It only helped to enhance the badness of this album, where a guitar could have usually helped the overall production of this one. And honestly, if I have to sum it up to one conclusion, I would say that this album does things differently for the sake of doing things differently and not sounding good. As I said, the only places where this album sounds kinda good is where they recreate a one-to-one recreation of the original ELP piece. So yeah, as I see it, this album was made by pretty uncreative people. They wanted to do a nice tribute to Keith Emerson, that's cool and all, but they should honestly have stuck to the original, playing it one-to-one, and then it would have probably sounded a lot better. But the fact that they released this album is just a mess. I don't like it at all. I don't see any potential in it, and honestly, I'm not eager to listen to anything more by them. Now, for anyone watching this video and thinking to yourselves, well, this couldn't be that bad, like, can't it? So I would say you can go ahead and listen to this album and understand what I'm talking about, but I want to spare you the suffering of listening to two songs being the cover for Lucky Man and I Talk to the Wind. The way that they covered those two songs honestly have blotted my own good representation of the original songs in a way that I cannot forget anytime soon, and I'm so pissed off by it and I don't like it, so I'm not gonna talk about it anymore. I'm sorry, Voyager Ivy, but you have downright screwed this album, and it's something that I want to forget as quickly as possible. Yo, what up? We're talking about the cover right now and I have to calm down a bit, but I would say that this cover is actually a very odd thing. Usually albums have pretty good music but less than average covers, but this cover is actually pretty cool. I like the way that it connects somewhat with the name of Voyager IV, sounding like a satellite in space, of course being Voyager, and also containing the 4 band members as astronauts. And this cover is pretty modern in most ways. It has like the rectangular earth, the cube-like earth, and it has really, modern imagery on it. It doesn't really connect to the music to me at all. Like the original ELP cover does connect to the music. For some unknown reason it just does, but this one doesn't. And honestly, I don't like it for it, but objectively, this cover is pretty fine. I would say that this cover would have actually been a lot better for the album called Voyager that we reviewed on here 3 days ago. This cover and that album would have fit superbly together. So when it comes to the rating of this album, this one gets into the Hall of Fame of worst albums on this list, receiving a whopping 3 out of 10. Now, I was doubting whether I should make a playlist for my least favorite albums or the worst albums I've listened to so far, and I said to myself, when I reach a certain amount I'm gonna do that, and I think this album is the straw that broke the camel's back. I have trash talked this album enough. I'm gonna finish this off and tell you the next album we're gonna listen to tomorrow, which will be Black Noise by the band FM. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.